The Week in Review with David Davis. Welcome to The Week in Review this week. It's the last week of term, so it's the last week we'll be doing this for a little while, but it's been quite a hectic week. Most of you will have seen the reporting of Nigel Farage having had his bank account cancelled and the government's proposed response to that. You may remember a few weeks ago I raised the issue of politically exposed persons and the legislation around bank accounts in Home Office questions. At that stage, we didn't know as much as we do now about why Coutts actually shut down Nigel Farage's bank account. And it now transpires that it's because his views did not align with their values. I think that was the phrase they used. A very thinly concealed basic piece of political censorship. It was done without any right of appeal, any right of arbitration, even any right to justification. Now, the simple truth is, that has been exposed by the fact that Farage put in what's called a subject access request. It's something we in this office use a great deal to find out about what's been going on with individual people. And that threw up a 40-page dossier as to why they did it. Now, you may not like Mr. Farage, you may have different views to him, I certainly have different views to him, but the simple truth is that we cannot allow yet again the cancellation of people's rights to have a different opinion, and in particular we can't allow them to be punished by the banks and by the financial sector for so doing. Maybe you think it doesn't matter, it's just Nigel Farage. Well, actually, this issue first came across my desk 2 years ago, I think it was, and I had to raise that with the Treasury and banks, and again, in those circumstances, they got batted away. So it's very, very important the government takes this seriously, because I think there are thousands, literally thousands of people who've had their bank accounts cancelled for simply reasons of their political views and their public stances. Probably one in every, or more than one in every constituency in the country. And we need to resolve how big a problem this is, take away the bank's right just to arbitrarily take away your bank account, give some arbitration rights, give some appeal rights, and fundamentally, I think in this day and age, we'll have to give people the right to have a bank account of some sort and make the industry organise around that. It's a big issue. It was a small issue in people's minds when I raised it 2 weeks ago or so. It's become a huge issue.
David Davis.
The Prime Minister, back to the question raised quite rightly by my right friend, the member for North East Somerset. The opposition politician he was referring to, of course, was Nigel Farage, whose bank account was closed, not because he was a PEP, not because of commercial reasons, but because his views did not align with the values of Coutts Bank, a thinly veiled political discrimination, a vindictive, irresponsible and undemocratic action. But in addition, NatWest also disclosed confidential details about Farage's account to the BBC and lied about the commercial viability of his account, actions which ought to jeopardise his banking licence and should certainly worry NatWest's 19 million other customers. So he's told us what he's going to do for the future, but there are many other people in this circumstance. So can he require every bank with a British banking licence to inform the Treasury of all the accounts they've shut down for non-commercial reasons in the last decade?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I know that the honourable gentleman has spoken to the Chancellor about this particular issue, and I know he'll continue to have those conversations. In the short term, having consulted on the payment service regulations, we do intend to crack down on this practice by toughening the rules around account closures. But in the meantime, the Financial Ombudsman Service is available for people to make complaints to, but I look forward to continuing the dialogue with him, as indeed does the Chancellor.
Well, apart from Prime Minister's questions, I also took part in Foreign Office questions this week. And raised the issue of the 25 families or so that are currently detained in Syrian camps and we're refusing to bring home. The fact of the matter is that most of our NATO allies, certainly all the most important ones, now bring home their own citizens who are often accused of terrorist offences, misbehaviour of one sort or another out in Syria. This is famous through the case of Shamima Begum, of course. And you may not have much sympathy for Shamima Begum, But we're talking here, as I said, 25 families with some 60 children. Now, if the argument is one of security, put to one side the innocent to proven guilty issues and all that, which are overwritten by this. But if the issue is just or simply one of security, well, think about this. Our policy at the moment leaves 60 youngsters, 60 children out in Syrian camps where they are very easily open to radicalization. And then they could turn up in Britain, because we know our border control is not that great at the moment. They could turn up in Britain, and we have ourselves a problem on our doorstep, inside our doorstep, which we could perhaps have prevented if we brought them home and allowed them to have a proper upbringing, even if it's under some degree of surveillance. And I don't like putting people under surveillance, but it's better than leaving them in a Syrian prison camp.
David Davis.
Mr. Speaker, most of NATO, including America, Canada, France and Germany, have repatriated their citizens from detention facilities in Syria. The United Kingdom repeatedly refuses to do so and is now an international outlier. 25 British families are held in Syrian detention facilities without charge or trial. Our independent reviewer of terrorism legislation has said that without action, this will become our Guantanamo. So will the Foreign Office review this policy to avoid us suffering international embarrassment for failing to take responsibility for our own citizens?
Repatriating citizens and the management of risks posed by returnees is ultimately a matter for individual countries. Our priority remains ensuring the safety and security of the United Kingdom, and the UK will continue to work closely with international partners in addressing the issues associated with those who fought for or supported Daesh, and in the pursuit of justice of those who have participated in terrorism overseas.
This week we've had some very good news on the medical research front. A drug called donanemab, which is very effective in reducing the impact of Alzheimer's. It's the second drug in 2 years which do much the same thing. Alzheimer's is associated with, probably caused by, not quite sure, but associated with plaque, what's called amyloid plaque inside the brain. And what this does is remove it. It brings antibodies into play to remove that. So fantastic development on the research front. One just reminds you how important science is in our society. Another technology issue is one which involves both politics and technology together, and it's this. The European Commission are bringing a competition case really to look at Microsoft and its treatment of some of its products. It is again bundling products together. In this case, Teams and Microsoft Office. Bring them together will disadvantage some of Microsoft's competitors. It's not the first time bundling has been an issue for them. It's certainly a number of American cases, but it's a strong indicator of the battle that's now going on for our headspace, really, by companies like Microsoft. And I think the European Commission is doing the right thing in this investigation. I should say, by the way, that Microsoft will likely respond adversely to it. When they had a finding against them a little while ago, they attacked basically the country for doing it, our country, Britain. But it's important that we make sure they do their job in a way that serves the consumer and not just their shareholders. Finally, on interactions between technology and politics, this week Grant Shapps, the Secretary of State, said that he didn't think hydrogen had a role in domestic heating and the like. And that inspired a reaction from British Gas saying, no, that's not true, that there is a clear possibility, maybe a probability of hydrogen being in a mixture with natural gas being able to be used for heating and for central heating stoves and the like. So it's really very important. Hydrogen anyway is clearly going to be one part of the sort of trio of carbon capture, nuclear and hydrogen that will make renewable energy, which by nature is a bit unreliable, make renewable energy a viable option. We have enormous wind farm fields off the east coast near my constituency. When they run, they'll provide a lot of electricity, but of course you can't always guarantee it. So you want to put that into something, a variety of ideas, one of which is hydrogen. So in my part of the world, I had dinner only a couple of weeks ago with a company called Meld and a number of others. And Meld are going to be investing £180 million in a project in Humberside. And I think, frankly, that's just the beginning. If we get this right, we'll become hydrogen superpower is too bland, but we'll become an important user of hydrogen in the new phase of energy development. If we get it wrong, we're going to be an importer of hydrogen, and we don't want to be that if we can avoid it. It's got all sorts of applications, we've already heard on British gas, but also in making effectively neutral or zero energy fuel, by combining carbon and hydrogen and so on. There are a variety of things that can be done with it. And my part of the world in Humberside, all around my constituency, we've got oil refineries, gas pipes coming ashore. We've got the possibility of putting carbon dioxide under the North Sea. And of course, as I said, we've got these huge wind farms offshore. All of this, handled properly, catalysed by the state, catalysed by government intervention, could be a huge success. But it does require us to keep an open mind and to think imaginatively about where we go next with our energy policy. That's it for today, the Week in Review this week. We're at the end of Parliament now, and all my colleagues are disappearing to other parts of the world after the by-elections. So we won't be coming back on this weekly channel until the end of August, probably early September. And so we'll see you then.